Dylan, thank you so much for doing this for us today. It's great to see you here at this conference, and I'm really, really looking forward to hearing what you have to say at the end of this, because you're the next speaker and you're going to tell us about what might be the consequences of MMH being true, if it's true or not, and we'll come to that in a tick.
Right.
I've got a variety of questions that I want to ask you, but particular about cognitive economics, and I don't know if you've looked at what we're actually launching here, but it's this new research program into cognitive economics, and I wonder if you think that is something that is particularly important for a younger generation of investors to understand.
Yeah, I do. Actually, not just a younger generation of investors, but a younger generation of economists, I think is really, really important. Yeah. I think that economics has gone down. My first passion was economics. I kind of accidentally landed in finance because I started out being, very, very interested in economics, but became very disillusioned with economics because theoretical economics, in particular macroeconomics, has gone down this intellectual cul-de-sac. So the notion of the rational agent, the notion of this kind of machine-like economic system, a mechanical system.
Do you think we really still think that?
We talk
absolutely.
Absolutely.
I stopped doing my economics degree and switched to economic history on the basis that it was all too mechanicalistic, too econometrics, and very little behaviour in it, etc. And I felt that after the financial crisis, that there was a shift.
No.
Was it? No.
No. I think there was definitely a growing articulation of a widespread perception that economics wasn't being done properly and that economists were not really figuring out what this thing was. What is this economy thing, right? What exactly, what is it? What are its properties? How does it behave? How do we understand it? Why are we so bad at manipulating this system that we just had, a generational crash? Why do we keep having these crashes, etc., etc., etc.? And so I think that the kind of zeitgeist was very much open to new ideas, but in terms of academic economics, I think there has been absolutely no change in mainstream economics teaching. So Economics 101 is very much Economics 101 as it was 20 years ago, 20 years before that, 20 years before that. We're still, and to your direct question, do we still use this mechanical, machine-like metaphor? 100%. The very notion of equilibrium is a concept which is borrowed from linear closed systems. Linear closed systems will tend towards their own equilibrium. They will have their own equilibrium. If you disturb them, then temporarily there'll be a disequilibrium. But given the nature of closed linear systems, that equilibrium will be restored. And what I've just said is the standard metaphor for demand supply imbalance in any market, right? That is the metaphor. So if you've got a market which tends towards equilibrium, and if all markets tend towards equilibrium, then the economy will tend towards equilibrium, and that's what we're trying. That's what we all want. We want an economy which is equilibrium. So the whole thing is absolutely mechanistic. And the problem, to my mind, is that's just wrong. That metaphor is just very. It's not wrong, it's very limited. And I think that a far better metaphor, which would allow for more questions, would accommodate more interesting questions, is needed. And I think that such a metaphor would be a biological one, and I think it would be an organism. And the very best organism, the most interesting organism, is the human mind, because it has this consciousness problem as an add-on, the ultimate hard problem in science. So yeah, I think that's absolutely, I think Patrick's absolutely right. This is very much what, to bring it back, cognitive economics, I hope, is the future of how we start to think about economic behaviour.
Okay, so hopefully not just for the younger, but for the older economists
for all,
as well.
Just for all, we do get these, the history of science is almost a history of improving the metaphor, right? That's what it is, right? So, we can do it. We really can. It's very interesting. Why haven't we? Why do we still have these really stupid, lame ideas and proponents of those ideas kind of stuck in academia? It's a separate question. But yeah, so I'm very hopeful that there will be this kind of regime change in the way we think about these things.
Okay, and what about in finance? So the models of economics and the model of finance are different.
Yeah.
And we still have a very mechanistic way of teaching finance.
Yeah.
I actually decided a little while ago that I would become become a qualified something or the other, and I went and did the various investing exams, etc.
Yeah.
And one of the things that everybody said at the beginning was leave everything you've learned in your 20 years of working in markets at the door, because the exam is based on different theories, different models, etc., that we don't use. And so in finance, we persist in teaching a model-based course, but we don't use it.
I think that's right. Well, I think so. Firstly, you need models. So that's I think that there's a kind of criticism that you hear sometimes that the problem with economics and the problem with finance is they're too model-based. You need models. You can't understand anything without a model. So you can't. I think of the many sticks that you can beat modern economics with, the use of models isn't one of them. Related to that, I think that the use of mathematics isn't one of them either. If mathematics is the language of nature. So if the economy is a natural thing, which I think it is, funnily enough, a machine isn't. The metaphor that we use of a machine is not natural, so it's strange that we latch onto it. But anyway, the economy is a natural thing. It should be explainable using the language of nature, which is the language of mathematics. So again, another criticism that you often hear leveled at economists, they use too much mathematics. Again, I don't think that's right. The issue is that they use the wrong types of mathematics. Now, the way I view a market, and the way we understand markets, I know, anyone who's worked in markets understands that there is no equilibrium. There's just this constant dance between, the dominant strategy of the day and the environment. And the dominant strategy, if it's very successful, then people will start to copy it. And as everyone starts to copy it, everyone starts to do the same trades. Everyone starts to buy the same things and sell the same things roughly at the same time. And of course, that changes the prices, and it means that those trades are no longer as profitable. In other words, the success of the dominant strategy has changed the environment in such a way that the dominant strategy is no longer dominant. And so you get this interaction, and that's called alpha decay. Right, so we understand that as alpha decay, and we know that that's a kind of feature.
We know that in markets, success begets failure. We know that.
Yes, and I think that when we work in market, we know that it must be that way, because we're always looking for the permanent. What's the formula? And the answer is there isn't one. There's a dominant strategy at a particular point in time.
We are always waiting for the change.
And that's right. And we always marvel when the dominant strategy seems to be completely insane, like Cathie Wood, for example. But she did a phenomenal job. She hit the ball at the park for a few years. Right. Now maybe that was stupid. Maybe that was crazy. Maybe what she did was reckless. Maybe it was thoughtless. Maybe it wasn't, etc., etc., etc. Nevertheless, that was the dominant strategy, right? And so I think that understanding that interaction between strategy and environment as a financial market phenomenon, by the way, as a biological phenomenon, this is a kind of predator-prey type population dynamics. But that happens in the economy as well, right? That happens in real product markets. That happens in service markets, right? Where one innovation will actually spawn a whole bunch of imitators, and before you know it, something that was once just a game changer, a phenomenal innovation, just becomes a commodity, like an ironing board, right, or an iron, right? Once upon a time, irons were this was a hot piece of technology, right? This was the ultimate consumer good, right? Now it's just that you don't make any money in iron. So this kind of process of the dominant strategy being kind of temporary, and this kind of notion that the market, whether it's a financial market or product market, somehow learns from the dominant strategy and therefore nullifies that dominant strategy. That's very, very biological, and that's true in financial markets and it's true in product markets. So I think that with the right with the right models, and by the way, the right mathematics, because all of these concepts that I'm talking about can absolutely be modelled mathematically and have been deployed in biology, in cognitive science, in mind sciences, very, very fruitfully. Right, so we can actually, I think, get kind of insights with quite kind of standard models that are already out there. So that's one of the things that I would like to see.
Quick question: you write quite a lot about philosophy. How can that help investors?
I
really mean quick.
I don't think it can.
But didn't you write in one of your Popular Delusions recently, wasn't there, of a philosophical disposition that suggested that somehow that kind of thought could help us?
I think that I like to say investing is applied epistemology, right? So ultimately, you're surrounded by a whole bunch of narratives and beliefs, most of which, in fact, all of them are wrong. The question is, to what degree are these things wrong, and when are they wrong? And so I think that thinking very, very critically and skeptically about what people are telling you, but also with an open mind. You can't just dismiss everything as being nonsense. You do have to make a decision as an investor. You do have to make a judgment. You're never going to get the certainty that you want. And so I think that kind of rational thinking about the extent to which a particular given narrative is actually true or not true, or is likely to be true, that's kind of applied epistemology, and I suppose you could say therefore that's kind of a philosophy. So if you're good at thinking through kind of philosophy, then maybe you're good at investing. But that's a little bit of a stretch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, good quick answer.
Thank you.
Dylan, thank you very much.
Thanks, Merryn.